Please remain standing while chaplain says prayers.
Lord, we thank you for those who represent and serve the communities that comprise the Fylde Borough Council area. We ask you to guide and give wisdom and discernment to all involved in the discussions and debate at this council meeting tonight. May their decisions be made for the common good. Amen.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Good evening, everyone. Agenda item 1, declarations of interest. Do any members have any personal or prejudicial interest to declare? Now, on the agenda, there is, so I'm just mentioning landlords. So if anyone's a landlord or, yeah. I'm going to put round on. Oh, right, thank you. You can, no, you can't leave the building. You're not Elvis. Councillor Pittman, are you taking a note of this? Anybody else? Councillor Banforth has declared an interest. Thank you. Is there anybody else? That's it. That's it. Thank you. Agenda item 2, confirmation of minutes. I would like to propose that the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 18th of December 2023 be confirmed as correct records.
I would like to second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 3, Mayor's announcements. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank those who came to my grand dining experience. It was wonderful at Lytham Hall. Thank you very, very much. Thank everyone who was involved in that. It was just an absolutely amazing evening. Thank you. Forthcoming events. I have a cheese and wine on the 2nd of March at Lytham Hall. I have my mayoral ball on the 23rd of March. And I have May the 4th be with you. Guess what date? May the 4th barbecue at Lytham Hall. So anybody who has got any spare raffle prizes or anything, please let Joe know. And if anybody would like tickets for those events, also let Joe know. Thank you. My next announcement actually is, colleagues, I was delighted to attend an awards ceremony for Lancashire recipients of the King's Awards for Voluntary Service in January. This award is the equivalent to an MBE and is the highest award given to local voluntary groups in the UK and is awarded for life by the King. I was joyous that 2 of the 8 voluntary organisations who received the award in Lancashire have been active in Fylde. The first recipient were the United Youth Alliance, formerly known as the Washington Group, founded by Debbie Terrace in 2018. They have been responsible for creating opportunities for young people and supporting events such as International Women's Day. Friends of Newton Community Park was the other recipient, who have transformed a local park, creating a beautifully sensory garden as well as keeping the area maintained through the village. Volunteers who have shifted bark, repaired brickwork, planted flowers and trees and weeded and tidied. And it's a wonderful organisation. So huge congratulations to these organisations in having this great honour bestowed upon them. As you all know, we have such great volunteer capital in Fylde with an abundance of community groups. Therefore, I would like us all to look to those groups and consider nominations going forward. Anyone can nominate a community group, and I will ask that the link to the website about the award is added within the minutes. Thank you, Catherine. Now, seriously, I'm looking at all the ward councillors here. If there's anybody that you know who would fit at this, it's a wonderful, like I say, it's for life. Any volunteering groups, please put them forward. The King's Award is just something really special. And finally, about our King, I am sure the whole council will want to join with me in sending him well wishes to him following his cancer diagnosis. And that's me for now. Agenda item 4, Chief Executive's Communications.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have none this evening.
Short and sweet, just like you. Agenda item 5, questions from members of the public. 2 questions have been received from members of the public on this occasion. Can I remind everyone that a supplementary question may be asked, but it must arise from the answer to the original question. Question 1. Miss Daniels.
Following the publication of the Scrutiny Committee's report on the upsurge of children's homes from 18 to 28 in the Fylde from September 2022 to September 2023, please can the Council advise on how many children's care homes are required in the Fylde area to support demand?
Thank you, Ms Daniels. Chairman, Vice Chairman of Internal Affairs Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Fazackley or Councillor Kirkham to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, in answering the question, I think it would be helpful if I reminded members of the scope of the review that were agreed by the Internal Affairs Scrutiny Committee. These are the bullet points. To establish how children's care homes are regulated by the various public bodies. To allow elected members and the wider community to be confident that adequate regulation is in place. To ensure interested parties are aware of the regulatory processes available, and to understand how the facilities are operated by lead providers in the borough. The review identified that there is a significant oversupply in the number of children's homes in Lancashire to meet local need, with there being over 4 times the number of children's home beds in the county than required, and that Fylde Borough has seen the biggest growth in additional children's homes of any Lancashire borough. It was of concern to learn that despite such apparent oversupply, LCC Children's Service still has difficulty finding suitable places to accommodate its need within Lancashire. The review also found that the establishment of children's homes appears to be market-led, with no oversight and control of need and demand by any public body. This means that where there is demand, providers are continuing to open new homes. What is of course of concern to Fylde is that we are taking more than our fair share of growth. As members are aware, the majority of new children's homes in Fylde accommodate only 1 to 2 children and so do not require planning permission. Applications for lawful development certificates are a legal assessment of the requirement to obtain planning permission. They are not judged against planning policy and do not take the views of the local community into consideration. However, if it is considered a material change and the provider makes a planning application, our requirement through the local plan is always to plan for the minimum identified need, and so we couldn't use a need assessment to place a cap on the number of children's care homes in the area. I hope this helps.
Thank you, Councillor Fazackley. Ms Daniels, do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Mr Cridland, would you like to come and ask your question?
Thank you. My question is, will the Council be taking further steps beyond those in the scrutiny report? And if so, what steps? I was one amongst the many members of the public who attended the last scrutiny committee meeting about children's care homes in the Fylde. The report outlined the serious issues and problems that are developing and growing in the Fylde. It was a good report, but could have gone further. The recommendations felt inadequate in the face of the problems. I can think of several areas where the Fylde Council could do a lot more than is being proposed. So my question is, will the Council be taking further steps beyond those in the scrutiny report? And if so, what steps?
Thank you. Lead Member for Social Wellbeing, Councillor Chris Dixon, to respond.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, everyone. Apologies, there will be a bit of overlap with the previous answer on this. Will the Council be taking further steps? Well, the recommendations made were the first step in the process for us all here at Fylde, and we will be taking further steps, and indeed have done so already. The recommendations were an examination of the present system and the acknowledgement of serious gaps in the national regulatory and legislative processes governing children's homes. It is essentially a free-for-all in an open market which no singular government department has oversight over, creating problematic gaps. Ofsted, for example, talk about local need, but quantify neither need nor local. Home operators can open and cater for children from outside the area, and this is creating the perverse situation where we have around 4 times as many care home spaces for children as we have need in Lancashire, and yet we still have need because we cannot place all of Lancashire's children who need a place. This is usually due to operators accepting far more lucrative places to commissioning authorities from further afield. At Fylde, we only connect to this process through the planning system, through no other way. And at present, national guidance is clear: full planning applications are not required for small-scale children's homes for 1 or 2 children, and they should not come before the planning committee unless an objection is raised. We then get into the sticky territory of what constitutes a valid objection, which must be in planning terms. We cannot then talk about local need, as we feel we should, because it's not enshrined in the legislation in any defined terms. And as stated before, unbelievably, we still have local need because all the places are taken up from children from outside the area. There is no limit on home numbers in planning terms, and there is no framework we can use at present to demand local placements in these homes. We continue to examine these factors, however, to see if there is anything we can enshrine in our legislation. So we are looking at a better mechanism through how we handle these applications through the planning system. We're speaking with our neighbouring authorities and others to look at their processes. Some have instigated new measures to bring each and every application before a planning committee, namely Blackpool and Lancaster, not Wyre as a few people have mentioned. They run the same as we do at the second. However, we're also aware that those changes are likely to be tested very soon by the operators, who told us they would be doing so during the process of this review. We believe as councillors, and I think I speak probably across parties, they may say not, but we believe that these changes to a children's home should constitute a material change of use at a property in a residential area, but the guidelines presently state they do not. This is an avenue we're still pursuing, and we're looking at enshrining that in our planning policies if we can do, through an examination of the other authorities' work and our continuing dialogues with planning authorities, care providers, government and others. We have to do it right. If we do it wrong and it's challenged, we'll end up in a worse situation than we're in now. Since the report, we've met with the Minister for Planning's office, with the MP for Fyle, to raise our concerns. We've presented those concerns to government and are awaiting a response in an ongoing dialogue with government. We've also met with the Police and Crime Commissioner's officers to discuss our concerns, which they readily share, to further our call for government reform in this area, and they have shown full support for that. So yes, we've taken further steps since the report publication a couple of weeks ago. We continue to look at multiple options with our planning officers and outside agencies in an ongoing process.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Mr Cridland, do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
I do, please.
Go ahead.
Councillor Dixon, thanks for your reply. Some of it was very reassuring that you've already, in fact, taken further steps, but most of what you said wasn't so reassuring because you outlined the weaknesses in the system that doesn't allow you to intervene very much. So I've got some ideas for further things that can be done. In fact, I'm personally doing some of the things because of what's happening in St Andrews Road, or what is being proposed there. I see that yesterday's news from the Wyre Council means that they are taking a more determined approach and have turned down a home, and obviously probably within the guidelines that you were talking about. But I suppose if the council looks inactive, it looks powerless, it looks ineffectual and solutionless on this issue, then there are dangers in the political climate that we live in. And my question is, are you worried about those dangers, that people will take things into their own hands and other actors on the political stage will use this for their own ends? We need to be seen to be doing something. Are you worried that by not doing very much, we are putting the local democratic system in danger?
Thank you, Mr Cridland. Councillor Dixon.
I think I've just demonstrated and listed several other things that we are doing, that we're speaking to the local authorities, we're speaking to the care providers, we're speaking to government. Those meetings will continue and go on, and I'm not going to go into people taking things into their own hands, because that's just a ridiculous situation to really chat about.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr Cridland. Agenda item 6, questions from members of the council. No questions have been received from members of the council on this occasion. Agenda item 7, notice of motion, freedom of the borough. I invite the leader of the council, Councillor Karen Buckley, to introduce the notice of motion.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. If you will indulge me, I will read out this notice of motion. I ask the Council to recognise the contribution that Sybil Beaumont GBEDL has made to services to rugby on an international stage following an illustrious career. As many members will know, Sybil played rugby for Fylde, for Lancashire, and he became England captain in 1978. He led England in 21 of his 34 caps, with a particular highlight of his career in 1980 when he led them to their first Grand Slam since 1957. After retiring from rugby, he became a well-loved personality in the TV schedules as one of the team captains in the BBC's A Question of Sport. Sybil Beaumont has not only subsequently driven transformational governance reform in support of World Rugby, but he has also driven improvements for player welfare and well-being. Sybil has also made a great contribution to the local community, and he is involved in many charities, both local, national and international. Sybil also supports the Lord Lieutenant in her duties as His Majesty's representative in Lancashire, where he acts as a Deputy Lieutenant at various events throughout the county. This exceptional service to rugby was recognised with a knighthood in 2018 and followed by his recent award for the Knight Grand Cross in this New Year's Honours List. I would like to propose that Fylde Council honours this fine Lancastrian and Fylde citizen by conferring on him the honour of Freedom of the Borough. I ask members to join me in supporting this motion. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Do you have a seconder for your motion, Councillor
Certainly.
Buckley?
Councillor Redcliffe.
Councillor Redcliffe?
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. This is a very special moment, and indeed I do find that it's a privilege and honour to be able to second this notice of motion, which is for the award of the Freedom of the Borough of Fylde to Sir Bill Beaumont. In many ways, I'm just going to add a very few comments to the comments that the leader has already made, but in so many ways, Sir Bill Beaumont is the very personification of the meaning of the words strong leadership. And he personifies that in so many different ways. On the rugby field, he has shown that tremendous sense of leadership as captain of Fylde Rugby Club, Lancashire and England. But also off the field, through his contribution to the administration and governance of the game that he loved and still loves so much, on a local, national and international basis. Beyond the game, he has also demonstrated outstanding leadership in the local community with his work for local and national charities, and in his role as Deputy Lieutenant of Lancashire. I should also add, I'm very proud to say that he lives in the ward of Ansdell and Fairhaven. I'm going to quote now from something I read, that this is a requirement of this particular office. I believe he has, inverted commas, I'm going to quote, rendered eminent services to the Borough of Fylde. And I think he would be a very worthy recipient of this extraordinarily rare award. And I hope that we can support this notice of motion. So I'm very happy to second it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Does anybody wish to speak to the item? Chris, Councillor Dixon.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. No, very happy to support this. I think it's wonderful that we can go down to Fylde Rugby Club on a home game when he's free, and the chairman of World Rugby is still there showing his support. And several times in the past we've had a good debate at the club over several pints about a decision that's gone on field, and to have it settled by the chairman of World Rugby down at Little Fylde is fantastic. So I fully support this. Thank you.
Yeah. I know Bill personally, and I know he'll find this absolutely thrilling. This. Does anybody else want to speak to this item? No. We will take the vote. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 8, council tax reduction. I invite the lead member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Ellie Gaunt, to introduce this item. We'll just wait for... Don't leave the country. Thank you, Councillor Gaunt.
Okay. Thank you, Mr Mayor. The council tax reduction scheme assists people who are on low incomes or claiming certain benefits to pay some of their council tax bills. Excuse me. The principles behind the scheme are shown in the report. I think these summarise what the scheme is trying to achieve. The thrust of this is that the scheme is transparent, simple to administer, fair and understandable to customers. The council reviews the scheme annually, as it has done since the scheme was introduced in April 2013, and as part of this, it consults with major preceptors. Their responses are set out in Appendix B of the report. Notably, the respondents felt that the level of support afforded to claimants was appropriate and the administration arrangements for the scheme were good. This review and consultation has not identified the need for any revisions to the scheme, and as such, it is recommended that the maximum reduction in council tax for working age claimants is 22.7%, which is in line with reductions awarded in previous years. Significantly, this is also the rate at which the scheme is self-funding. i.e. that the costs of the scheme are offset by grants from central government and therefore cost neutral to the council. In addition, recommendation 2 covers the continuation of the discretionary hardship relief, which provides further support for claimants in exceptional circumstances to help reduce their council tax liability for a specified period of time. There is a stringent criteria for this, and details of both schemes can be found on the council's website. Staff in the Revenue and Benefits team are trained to signpost vulnerable service users to both of these schemes where appropriate. I'm therefore happy to propose the recommendation in the agenda and do have a seconder in Councillor Dixon. Thank you.
Councillor Dixon.
Yep, very happy to second and reserve the right to speak should need.
Thank you. We will now take the vote. Does anybody else want to speak to this item? No? Are you all right to? Do you want to speak again? No? Don't encourage him. Right. We will now take the vote. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That's carried. Yes, we'll pause while we... let's hope she hasn't left the country. Is Councillor Banforth back on? Yeah, thank you. Agenda item 9, medium-term financial strategy. I invite the lead member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Ellie Gaunt, to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is the MTFS update, which outlines the financial position of the Council for the financial years 23-24 through to 27-28. The position as at the end of January 24 is shown in Appendix E on page 25. The main change since this item was last reported to Council is the inclusion of the impact of the Provisional Local Government Finance Settlement, which was announced on the 18th of December last year. This is a one-year settlement only, and the provisional award for 24-25 is $941,000. Members should note that this is a single-year settlement, and therefore it's difficult to forecast the amount that this settlement may be in future years. Therefore, looking at Appendix E, we can now see a forecast surplus of $425,000 for 23-24 and a surplus of $266,000 for 24-25, with large deficits thereafter. Members should also note that the revenue position is after accounting for a provisional increase in council tax charges of 2.99% in the forecasts. Other changes since the MTFS was last reported to Council in December are summarised in Appendix C. This includes the forecast increase in income from fees and charges from 24-25 onwards. There have also been further favourable movements in interest receipts in 23-24. Other smaller changes are also shown in this appendix, including an expected increase in income from the Living Festival. I'm happy to propose the recommendation in the agenda and will of course update Council in due course on future changes. And I do have a seconder, Councillor Withers.
Thank you, Councillor Gaunt. Councillor Withers.
Yes, I'm happy to second this item, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak to the item? We frightened them. Right, we will take the vote then. All those in favour? Unanimous again. Thank you. Agenda item 10, the annual pay policy statement. I invite the Deputy Leader, Councillor Richard Redcliffe, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The annual pay policy statement is something that we visit on an annual basis, as it implies in the statement. But I just want to take a little bit of time to emphasise certain points in this statement and one or two changes as well. The Localism Act of 2011 requires that the Council have to produce, review and approve a pay policy statement on an annual basis. As the report, the detailed report, indicates, the policy covers Chief Officer remuneration, recruitment, salary bonus, performance-related pay, charges, fees, allowances, benefits in kind, enhancement to pension at termination, remuneration arrangements for all employees, remuneration of its lowest paid employees, the definition used for this group and the reason for adopting that definition, and the relationship between Chief Officer remuneration and that of other staff. In the pay policy statement for 2024-25, it states clearly that Fylde Council is committed to paying all employees appropriately and fairly through the implementation of recognised job evaluation schemes. Pay scales for all employers at all levels are in the public domain, and data is published on senior salaries and its entire pay scale in the interests of transparency. In all matters pertaining to pay and remuneration of all employees, the Council complies with all relevant employment legislation, which is listed in the report. All Council policies that relate to employment benefits are universally applied unless there is a specific contractual or business reason why they should be limited to a certain group of employees. This year, the policy includes a legislative change passed with respect to the gender pay gap information. The statement confirms that the Council will publish the required gender pay gap information online, and it will be updated from April the 1st each year, alongside other data required as part of the pay policy statement. Therefore, members, the recommendation is that Council approve the pay policy statement included as Appendix 1 to the report, along with a required statement on gender pay gap information. I would like to move approval, and I have a seconder in Councillor Harrison.
Councillor Harrison.
Many thanks, Mr Mayor. Happy to second.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak to this item? No. Right, we will now take the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous again. Very good, very good. Thank you very much. I now conclude this meeting. Thank you.